Oh, got it.
Caren, how's your afternoon?
Oh, I am so happy. The sun is shining. I am literally sitting here looking out at the ocean right now, and it is all these different shades of blue, and it is calling me for a walk, I think.
Oh, wow. That's lovely.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully you will get some time with you to share some of the money psychology that you're going to bring to our audience today and really diving deep in there because I think when we hear a lot from money coaches, there's a fair bit out there at the moment and it's primarily around earning more, but
Mm.
um, you're saying that it's
There's
much
a
deeper than
piece,
that.
yeah, there's a piece
Mm,
before that. And I think,
mm,
I've been a financial planner as well as a financial planner for 20 years.
mm,
And I know that you can have all the best money advice and your instruction in the world, but if your money beliefs contradict what you're learning, you're just going to self-sabotage.
mm.
So, it's what a lot of people, but particularly women, have done. And probably as they're listening to this podcast right now, I reckon there'll already be a few women going, oh, that's what it is, right? That's why it's not that I don't understand it or it doesn't stick in my head. It's because it contradicts the money belief.
Yeah, look, and I'm guilty of it too. I think I'm very aware of a lot of the beliefs, but at this point, like I don't really know what to do about it. So
Yeah.
it's still sabotaging. But let's go back a step before jumping into that because we're not really talking about income and things here. We want to talk about um, how it's holding us back in negotiating, in settling disputes, in all sorts of other areas where we let our worth disappear.
Yeah. So I actually, I've been doing so for 30 years. I've been working with women in business, right? But this applies whether you're a business owner or not a business owner.
Mm,
And one thing that I can say unequivocally from that 30 years of experience is that there is a direct correlation between a woman's self-worth
mm,
and her net worth,
mm,
right? I've never been proven wrong on this one at all. And so, it comes back to what we think we're worth is the amount that we are willing to accept.
mm.
And, most women I know, first of all, if we look at it, most women I know hate talking about money
Yeah.
or hate talking about price, right? I find that most women, again, whether they are employed or self-employed, really happy to talk to people about how they can help them and love telling people how they can help them.
Mm,
But when they actually have to talk about the price of that help, they stumble, they fumble, and they feel really icky.
mm.
I've had one of my clients said, "Oh, I feel like I need to take a shower afterwards."
Oh.
I know. They'll feel uncomfortable asking for a raise.
Mm,
I have yet, in my 30 years, I've yet to meet a woman business owner who, when we first started working together, was charging what she was actually worth. And just working harder and doing so much more,
mm,
try and be noticed to be worth that money. Whereas I think for our male counterparts, a lot of them don't have the same issue and certainly not to the same extent. I've worked with plenty of men as well as clients, and they just don't seem to have the issue to the same extent.
mm. It's
Yeah.
fascinating, isn't it?
Oh,
And as you say, like it holds us back in so many areas.
yeah, yeah.
Because as you say, asking people to pay you is one thing, but then there's chasing people up if they don't pay you.
Absolutely, right. And this is, it's really quite understandable. Like I have a lot of women who go, "Oh, I don't know why. I'm just too scared to charge this, or I'm too scared to ask for this."
Mm,
But there is actually a really good reason why this is hard for us. From the moment we are born, we are taught, our society, I'm not just talking about our parents here, right? We can blame our parents for some stuff later, I promise. But society teaches us that we are all about serving and nurturing and giving, right? We're not about asking for money. Now, serving and nurturing and giving, they are actually all great things in business. Like, they are great business traits, but we're not socialized to put a dollar value on that service.
No.
You know, we're taught to give unconditional love. So to put a price on that love, it's really tough. And it's a real disconnect when it comes to the world of business, whether it's as an employed or as an employer, right? So, and that's why I think, you know, most women just aren't charging what they're worth, because it's really hard to put a price tag on that. There's that, as I say, there's that real disconnect. And so most women I know in business aren't charging what they're worth, and many employed women are not earning what they're worth. Yeah. I actually asked, I was running a workshop for business owners recently. It was female business owners, and they were in all different industries. And I said, okay, who truly believes deep down, put your hand up if you truly believe that you're charging as much as you could be charging. Not a single woman put up their hand, Jackie. Then I asked, okay, well, who actually knows that they're undercharging but are scared of charging more? And do you know what? Every single woman put up their hand. So I thought that was, you know, really, really interesting. Also, every businesswoman that I've ever worked with, and I've worked with a lot, like hundreds, but they'll often be doing work for free. Because they're too uncomfortable to explain that there's an extra cost involved. So they're just letting it go because they don't want to disrupt the relationship, or they don't want to come across as, you know, being aggressive or letting that person down by explaining there's an extra cost. And so, you know, then it becomes this vicious cycle that we are constantly devaluing ourselves, right? And then you mentioned something about chasing money. You know, debtors. Often, I find more often than not, female business owners have outstanding debtors because they're uncomfortable chasing people for money. Now, look, debtors can be a problem in any business with any gender, but often it's time. But for women, it's usually that they're also really uncomfortable. And unfortunately, from what I've seen as well, there's a lot of people who take advantage of that. I've particularly seen men taking advantage of that, maybe getting a little bit aggressive or pushing back, knowing that the female business owner is more likely to drop it than have that confrontation.
Oh, that makes me angry.
Yeah, angry as well. But I've seen it too often to not know that it happens a lot. And then when you're in the world of being employed, I found that women are a lot less likely to negotiate higher salaries when they accept a job. And this is, I'm a business owner as well. I've hired people as well. And what I found is that men are a lot more likely to negotiate higher salaries, even if they don't get it, they'll give it a go. Whereas I think for women, we take the job thinking, okay, once I get in there and I work really hard, I will prove myself. And once I've proved myself, I'll get paid more.
Without asking, because they'll just give it to me.
Well, I don't know if you've found this, Jackie, as well, but most women, or if you've done this before, but a lot of women, most women will wait to be acknowledged. They'll wait to be recognized, much less likely to sit down, strategize around what they actually think they're worth, what they're bringing to the table, what they're going to bring to the table, and then go into their employer and say, hey, based on this, what do you reckon? Whereas a lot more men will do that more readily.
Yeah. So we started talking about some of the fears that might lead us to this self-sabotaging, and one of them was the fear of letting someone down. What are some of the other fears that are really behind this conditioning?
Yeah, so there are some fears. I'll give you some fears and then I'll tell you where the conditioning comes from. So the fears, like, they're big. They're things like, I won't be loved. They're things like, I'll be rejected. They're things like, I'm not smart enough. We could go into, I know you talk sometimes, Jackie, about imposter syndrome. This is a massive area here as well, where people think, oh, if I was smarter, if I had this degree, then I'd be able to charge that. I can't tell you how many women I've talked out of doing an MBA.
Oh, yeah.
Because a lot of women, if they're doing it because they want to do an MBA, fine.
Yeah.
But what I have found is when I've spoken to women about why they want extra accreditations, it's because they think that will give them more credibility, and then they'll be able to charge more. Then they'll have earned the right to charge more. And it never happens, right? Because we could go our whole lives getting more accreditations and keep getting smarter and smarter. But if we don't get rid of these underlying or address these underlying money beliefs, again, it just won't matter how smart we are. We'll never really believe that we're worth more. And other fears are what other people will think. So being judged. I hear this happen all the time with women in groups. So a woman will talk about how much she's charging, and other women will say things like, I can't charge that, or you're not experienced enough to charge that, or, you haven't been in the industry enough to charge that. And it makes me think, in what world do you reckon men have those conversations? A man's going, I charge this. His mates are going, good on you, mate.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's great. It's great that you think that you're worth that. So sometimes I think as women, we can be our own worst enemies. And it's not, I don't think that women are trying to undermine other women by doing this. I think they're expressing their own fears.
Yeah.
They're expressing their own, well, gee, if you're charging that and you've only been in the industry for a few years, then, gosh, I need to really take a look at what I'm charging.
Yeah.
I think there's so many fears around this. Let me tell you where it all comes from.
Yes.
Remember I said I would get to being able to blame mum and dad, right?
Yes.
Because honestly, when it comes to our money beliefs and those behaviors that come from those beliefs, they really do stem from only two sources. And they are our mother and our father, or our parents,
Yeah.
You may have other influences, but I promise that's where these money beliefs have started. So I've done, when I didn't know all these things and I didn't know any better and I was studying to get smarter,
Yes.
I did a lot of training in human behavior, because in my origin story, I really, really did it tough to become successful. And so I did a lot of training around human behavior. And what I learned was all our behaviors are formed between the age of 3 and 7. Okay. And so this includes our money behaviors.
Yes.
And the issue that we have with this, though, is that we make them with a child's brain.
Yeah.
So we interpret things as a child. So For some women, as an example, maybe perhaps when you were younger, you heard your parents arguing. And now as adults, you might know that arguments happen all the time, that you can have a difference of opinion, but you still love your partner or your child or whoever it is that you're arguing with. And as an adult, we can get over arguments pretty quickly. But as a child, we may interpret that very differently. As a child, those arguments may potentially threaten our safety. And so the real problem is not only do we interpret them with a child's brain, but then we carry these behaviors into our adult life. And unless we become aware of them and make a conscious decision to change them, we have these behavioral responses that are often unconscious and usually don't serve us. Right? And so if you don't take action around those behaviors, they can just stay with you forever. And you can't have it both ways. You can't have negative beliefs around money and expect that you're going to make a lot of money.
Yes. So a 5-year-old's running my business, so that's great.
Well, you know what? In a lot of ways, very possibly. And that's something, when you look at, I do a lot of research around what makes somebody successful. What are the key ingredients? What are the people that have had uber success? What are the similarities, right? Because if we can find those patterns, we can model them. And what comes up all the time is self-awareness. Right? So it is about becoming self-aware. You often hear people that they talk about, they read this book and everything changed for them.
Yes.
And what's really happened there is that book has, it's not the book itself, it's what that book has unlocked for them. And it's that self-awareness, understanding, hey, this is holding me back and I need to do something about that. I was running a different workshop, and again, it was all women, and it was around this idea of money psychology. And I went up to one of the attendees and I said to her, complete this sentence: people with money are, and without missing a beat, she said, assholes. Now, I hope it's okay if I use that language. But now she's a business owner. How do you think she's going to go making money?
No.
Right? Because if she thinks once she earns a level of money, unconsciously, she believes that's going to turn her into a horrible person, a person that she doesn't want to be. And, if it comes down to logic or values, our underlying values are going to win. So you might think, oh, I'd love to have more money and I want more money. But if your value system is around, but if I have money, I'm going to be an awful person, absolutely you're going to self-sabotage.
I was just thinking for myself, people with money are. And I think for me, it's more around, well, people with money are aggressive, or if I go visual, I see people with money are men.
Interesting, hey?
Yeah.
And you're not an aggressive person and you're not a male. So that's why it's just harder than it needs to be. And so me as a business advisor, one of the things that I understood was that I could give my clients the best strategies in the world. I could give them the best advice in the world, and I believe that I do. But if there were underlying money beliefs that were counter to the advice I was giving them, then they were going to hit a ceiling. Like, we talk about the glass ceiling. There's definitely a money ceiling or a set point. So I often liken it to a heating system.
Yes.
So, you put your heater on and say you put it on 20. And every now and then it'll drop below 20 and the motor will kick in and it'll get you back to 20 degrees. But the same thing happens if it goes over 20 degrees. It kicks in to bring the temperature back down to 20 degrees. And that happens with money as well. If we go above where we believe we should be, our unconscious mind, which is 30,000 times more powerful than our conscious mind, goes, oh, better hit survival mode right now and get you back to where you're safe. And this is the level where you are safe.
Yeah.
It's
wow.
And most people don't know this. Like, I only know it because I studied it and went, this makes sense. And I saw it happen again and again and again with my clients. They'd be doing fantastic work. They'd be so excited because they were earning all this money. And then suddenly in their prep form, they'd be writing, oh, I've had a really bad month. I need to talk to you about strategies for cash flow, or I need to talk about strategies to grow the business. And I'd get in front of them and I'd be talking to them and go, but you know what to do. So what's really going on here? And that's when we would unpack it and realize what was really going on was, like what you said, there's all different people with money are. There's people with money are lucky. People with money need to work hard. Mine was people with money are generous and give it away. So I misinterpreted that as my parents were unbelievably generous. I misinterpreted that as, if I want to be a good person and I want to be loved, I need to give my money away. And that's okay as long as you've got the money to give away. And, you know, we've all heard the saying, you need to fit your own mask first.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, there are so many elements to this clearly, and that's for people who are not under a significant amount of stress. And yet if we have something where, you know, we're trying to sell a house and someone's breached the contract, or we have a tenancy issue, or, you know, we're separating, all these sorts of things, and you have that added stress, then I can imagine the self-awareness and self-regulation would be even harder because of the amount of stress we're under.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, I imagine, Jackie, that you would see it in your world. I imagine there would be a lot of women out there separating that don't fight for what they're actually legally entitled to, because they don't want to cause a fuss. They don't want to be seen as aggressive. They don't want their children to feel uncomfortable. They don't want to be judged.
Want to keep everyone happy. And you know what? They're the women that aren't coming to see lawyers because they'll just take whatever's offered to them.
That's an important point, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I do have 4 steps to be able to address this. Now, obviously, it's something I could talk for hours about, and I'm sorry, Jackie, I've hardly let you get a word in.
No, it's you're
so passionate about this.
Yes.
So the first step is really becoming aware that you do have some issues around money, and if you are in business, how that is impacting your business, because awareness brings change. You're not going to change something that you don't know is an issue.
Sure.
You really want to dig deep and find out, well, what are my money beliefs? Ask yourself the question, people with money are, and see what comes up for you. The second step is to be able to identify where these unresourceful money beliefs come from. So going back and thinking about when you were a child and thinking about where the money beliefs came from, because then you can see that it was as a child that you made these decisions around money and that they're not necessarily appropriate now. Then you do need to take some action to eliminate those beliefs. So that sounds to me potentially where you might be at the moment, Jackie, when you're talking about, like, I know it, but now I've actually got to take some action to eliminate those beliefs, which leads into the 4th step. I don't believe you can eliminate those beliefs unless you instill some new beliefs in. So you have to look and go, okay, well, now that I'm in control instead of the 5-year-old child, what do I believe? But also, what can I believe? If it's beyond your belief system, it'll never work. But what could you believe about money, and what evidence do you have around you that would help you be able to have some new beliefs.
Yeah.
I do have an exercise that helps with step one. It's just a little money exercise that takes about 5 to 10 minutes that helps people to unlock what their money beliefs might be. And I'm certainly happy to make that readily available to anyone who wants it.
Wonderful. Yeah, that'd be great. All right. And then thinking about, as you said, eliminate and then install some new beliefs.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to, our brain doesn't like a vacuum, right? And so what we have to do, if we're going to take out some beliefs, we do need to replace it with some new ones. Otherwise, we will just naturally go back to the old beliefs.
Default back. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sounds like some heavy stuff too, because it's facing some fears, isn't it? It
Absolutely.
really is.
It can be, like I say to people, it can be confronting, but it's also incredibly empowering. And that's what I love about this, is that once you've unlocked this and once you can see it and once you're recovered,
yes,
and you've got some new beliefs, honestly, I watch women just do ridiculous things with their business. Like that woman that I was talking about that was self-sabotaging when she got to a certain point. She is now telling me how she's so excited because her new goal is she's going to earn so much this year so that her husband can retire.
Oh, wow.
So, totally different money beliefs. She's going out and quoting $20,000 jobs, that before that she was quoting like $5,000 jobs. So it does make a real difference. Obviously we had some strategies and some things behind that, but they wouldn't have worked without, first of all, reframing her money beliefs.
Yeah, and that's the power in it, isn't it? The power is in recognizing that, we're doing this to ourselves, but we have the power and means to change that. And instead of being the victim, which none of us wants to be a victim, because even that's confronting. So we're no longer a victim. We have the power to change our situation. And those steps are pretty simple. Like it really just comes back to awareness and then consciously making some other decisions.
Yeah. And look, I find the most powerful things are simple. But I think also sometimes women, we love to overcomplicate things, right? We love to go, it can't be that easy. And look, it's not. We have to do some work. It's taken you all these years to create these money beliefs. And you're not going to undo them in 5 minutes, but it's certainly not going to take the same amount of time to, once you know what they are, to be able to undo them. And oh my gosh, it is so worthwhile. It's so liberating.
Yeah.
And then you start a whole different cycle about what you are worth.
Yeah. Yeah. Instilling the new beliefs, very powerful. Paz, can you tell us where people can go to find you? And shall we put the worksheet that you have for us in the show notes for everyone?
Oh, absolutely. I would love, if I can get this out to as many women as possible. The only thing is with that, it is directed at female business owners because that's the space I work. But if you're not a business owner, just adapt the questions to your situation or ignore the ones that aren't appropriate for you. But there'll still be enough in there to be able to go, oh, so that's where that came from. The best way to contact me, look, I love to make it as easy as possible for people to get in touch with me. I've said to you, Jackie, I'm on a mission. It was really hard for me to get where I was. I want to be a shortcut now for other women. I feel really vindicated when my 30 years of experience helped women do something in 3 months that took me 3 years. So 2 ways, probably the best to get in touch with me. One would be connect with me on LinkedIn. Love connecting with me on LinkedIn. So just be aware, I'm Caren with a C. So that's Caren, and my surname's Hendrie, Hendrie. So connect with me on LinkedIn, but make sure you say that you listen to Jackie's podcast so I can connect with you straight away.
Right.
And also, you feel free to email me. I answer all my emails. So that's c.hendrie, Hendrie, at hendrie.com.au. I'd love to hear if you've got any questions, if you want to share a story. I'm obsessed with female stories. If you want to share the results of your money quiz, if you want to ask me anything about business, please, I'll definitely answer you, and I love to be able to help.
That's wonderful and so generous. Thank you so much.
My absolute pleasure. It's my parents, they trained me.
Well, that's right. We can be generous in different ways, can't we?
That's right. And also, I've fit my own mask now. I've achieved a certain level of success that now it's really my mission to help others.
Wonderful. And you are making it very simple. So thank you. Thanks
My
so much for your time.
Oh, I'm so excited. I love being here. I was really, really wonderful to be able to talk to other women. And thank you very much for having me, Jackie.